So, I would like to hand the floor for the opening of the discussion to my good friend and colleague, a person who 3 years ago really ignited legal scholars talking about the legal subject of robotics. Please, Victor, the floor goes to you. Dear colleagues, Andrei, thank you. Thank you for your kind welcome. I'm happy to work with you together. I will briefly talk about what we have been doing with you. I'd like to thank the hosts for the event and for the invitation. I know that I don't have much time, but, we have been working on this issue of legal standing of the robots a few years ago, but let me this time talk about the identification of AI. I will be talking about three important things. Identification of artificial intelligence. Why this matters? In a few years, it will be hard to understand, even within this sort of conference. Are we talking to actual people, or we have some really fancy animation in front of us? Just a 3D model that's been again, based on some human mimics, and that will lead to lots of problems and misconceptions. So it's very important to identify whether you are at the moment dealing with another human being or an AI. This identification is a gateway into this new AI area where we are entering or have already entering. So the question is what we're interacting with, how we're interacting with it. And that matters because there is legal standing. There is judicial personality. And whether that there is a personality is a question. That's a complex issue. So it's very hard to find the cause and effect in this particular domain. So let's break the subject apart into things. First of all, we can identify AI with the use of technologies. There are quite a few systems in the world that can do that. And there are legal conflicts that have happened as a result. But it's not only about identifying the mere fact of interacting with AI, it's also identification of particular systems and technologies. If we take a look at Russian legislation, we have the Federal Law number 123 that was passed, the bill was passed on April 24th, 2020, and it only mentions briefly the AI. This is the law about the experimentation of the use of AI in the region of Moscow. That particular legislation again touches the issue of identification. If we take a look at what is happening in the world regarding the use of AI, for identification particularly, we can highlight a few trends, particularly in the US at the federal level and also at state legislation level, when there is the explicit trend to prohibit or limit the use of particular technologies for certain tasks, specifically for people identification, such as face recognition, etc. First of all, there's high anxiety regarding errors. Let's recall one of the things that happened in Russian supermarket a few days ago when they caught the wrong criminal. And that can lead to even some unpredictable problems about privacy invasion. So total surveillance and recognition does not correspond to current tasks that humanity is facing. By the way, there's a great case in Moscow legal system, particularly regarding local Moscow recognition systems, surveillance systems. The issue is important, obviously. So we have certain benchmarks, we have certain guidelines for legal standing of AI subjects and identification of AI subjects. There's quite enough of attention paid in that bill that I've mentioned, specifically talking certain thresholds of identification. So, Indeed, let's talk about that robotics legal standing that again was produced according to the request of Mr. Grishin. We have been talking about legal standing of robots, but that required some deeper research, of course. So, I will talk about some eventful norms later in the presentation. Again, trying to answer the question what we're interacting with. Whom are we interacting with? Today, I believe humanity, civic society, and individuals should be aware whether they are interacting with AI or a human being. People should know whether they interact with the automatic system that works according to linear scenario. That will help people to react accordingly in terms of risks and potential security violations.